Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking, and in this video I'm going to be speaking of my flashbackable memories from 2021, which I think is important, as I do in usually either the start or getting into the very early starting point of every new year. Well, even though now we're on the 8th of, we've been into the quite a number of days now, into 2022 now. I mean, usually around about this point in the new year, of every new year, sorry, I do a video speaking of flashbackable memories of the previous year, and I'll be talking about flashbackable memories from the year of 2021. I mean, the first start of 2022 wasn't a brilliant start, but in one of the early points of 2021, I meant to say 2021, not 2022, sorry, 2021, was the many funny moments on the live stream with Dave and Sally Abel. There were some really, really funny moments, and I just enjoyed them immensely. Certainly with the fun interactions, not only with Dave and Sally, but my wonderful friends from the Abel community. And I've had, not only did I have some funny moments with Dave and Sally, I also had some funny moments with with a good lady, quite well-meaning, nice, good, well-meaning good lady Eileen, wonderful friend of mine, the good lady Eileen, who is located over in Birmingham. It's the world basically interacts with Dave and Sally. And I had some funny moments, and she asked how I was. I said, I'm alright. Well, I'm getting on a little bit, which I do get on with age more these days, but when I said that, her response appeared as though she was very incredulous about it. She was like, "You too young to be getting on. I'm a lot older than you." And then I was like, and then I said something very funny to Dave and Sally, and I said, well, when you get older, oneself feels the cold more. Yes, that's true, because you're speaking of me being one of them as he got older. And I was like, I'm certainly one of those individuals who feels the cold more. He was reading, I'm one of those individuals who feels, he missed out the cold more. After he said feels, he didn't say feels, he said, I'm one of those individuals who feel, you're flipping young! That's what Dave said to me. He said, you're flipping young, Foxy! And then he looked to Sally. Sally looked rather confused, and then pulled a rather cross but surprised look on her face. And she revealed my age, saying, he's 19 years old, for goodness sake. And Dave was like, my God! What you want to do is go run round the block, Sally said. That'll get you warm. And then Dave said, when you get to Louise's age and in your 80s, you know, that's when you're going to feel the cold. And then Eileen was like, no way, Foxy is 19. I said, yes, Eileen, I'm 19 years old. I'll be 20 in June. This was 2021 I said that. And there were some funny moments, but I had, despite not having a rather rough start to 2021, I had wonderful interactions with my friends from the Abel community, being Eileen and Heather. Lovely Heather from Canada is where she's located. I mean, I just love the lady. I would kill for the loving lady Heather. I really would. I have a profound friendship with the wonderful lady. And I even began to interact with some people who I'd seen on the community for a reasonably longish period of time, but I never really said hello to them. I mean, I did take my time in saying hello to people, to others on there, but then I eventually got used to it and began to interact. Well, one of the first people I began interacting with via the Dave and Sally Abel community was with lovely Heather from Canada. And then I began to interact with Elizabeth and lovely lady, French lady who lives over in Hong Kong. And then there was Joseph from Massachusetts in America. But then, that was before 2021. I was slowly getting used to it. And then by 2021, I began to interact with yet more people. Well, Louise, definitely before 2021, it was definitely fun interactions with Louise, via the able community, that is. And not to mention Heather, I've mentioned her. Most loving lady. And I think many Canadians are extremely friendly with profound loving kindness and all that. I think they do. Many Canadians have that trait within their personalities, loving kindness and profound friendliness, really. As far as I know over the Canadians' personality trait. I wouldn't mean to say it in a racist way, I only mean it in a reasonably truthful and not racist manner. So, and then I began to socially interact via the able community with who I'd seen for a reasonably longish time, the lovely Sharon, and as well as Leanne, who lives in New Zealand. Sharon lives in New York in America with her much loved husband of over 40 years, Tim. Both of whom are keen travellers, both Sharon and Tim. But Sharon, when I began to interact with her for the first time, she said hello to me and I began to say hello back. And then one live stream, then it was the live stream that came on some days later after she first said hello to me. I'd almost forgot she was there, and I ended up saying hello to Sharon. I was like, oh, hello Sharon, I'm really sorry I didn't acknowledge you soon enough, but hello all the same. She was like, oh, hello, you kind gent. She said that to me. I don't know how old she thought I was at the time. Well, she knows I'm a little 20-year-old, as she knows already, going on for 21, that is, with me, not Sharon. Sharon and Tim are much older than I am, especially as they've been married over 40 years. Which is, because I'm, 20, going on 21 now, they've been married 40, nearly 41 years, so been married long before I was born, which you could very much say. Not only did I begin to interact with Sharon, alongside Heather, Elizabeth, Louise, many other wonderful people, lovely Rita, Joseph, sorry I forgot Joseph, lovely Rita I began to socially interact with. I mean, she seemed to, I think she's reasonably shy, but she seemed to slowly get used to me a little bit, because I wished her luck for being vaccinated against COVID, and she sent her thanks to me. And Sue in Greater London, Coralie in Australia, and then there was Edward, who made me think of, and one man, Edward, who lives over in Cambridgeshire, Edward Rance, I think it is, I began to socially interact with, as well as Eileen from Birmingham. Edward, who made me think of my wonderful late grandfather Edmund, who very sadly died in 2020, as a lot of you know. Only slowly, but I didn't say hello to him a lot, but I really should have socially interacted with him more often when seeing him, alongside Dave and Sally and all the others I've mentioned. And Stacey, lovely Stacey in Massachusetts in America, I began to socialise with. And back in just before 2021, Stacey said hello to me, and I was like, oh, hi Stacey, my love. It's lovely seeing you. And Dave did catch me saying this loving phrase, and he was like, hi Stacey, my love. God, Foxy, you're getting a bit familiar. And then I said my love to Louise. Oh dear, I mean, and I actually did get into trouble for that, because Louise is a married lady, and when I said my love, I'd got a severe telling off from Dave and Sally. Not good. I should have been more careful. Really, I should. and I began to socialise with lovely Ruth Volk, who lives in Seattle in America, Washington State, and you don't often see her on the Dave and Sally Abel community live streaming, but I did see and also gave some friendly comments to other people who gave comments to Dave and Sally, not always via the live stream, but on his videos in general, and like Beth Meredith and Paula and all that. So many wonderful people, and Teresa, Kathy, and there's lovely Kathy McKay from Toronto, Ontario in Canada, where Heather's located in Ontario but not Toronto, in St. Catharines as well. She's located. Lovely Kathy, very nice lady. I very, very much admire her profound kindness. I mean, she's not quite as lovely as Heather, but she's a very nice, a genuinely friendly and lovely lady, is how I described the lovely lady, Kathy. And all that. And I did it all the way through most of the year, really. And all that. Which was, I had a wonderful socialisation with friends of mine, who followers from Dave and Sally, who I began to make friends with, having not said hello to them before, but began to socially interact with not just Heather, Louise, Joseph, Elizabeth, and all that, or Eileen, Sharon, Stacey, or Kira from Ireland, lovely Kira, lovely Irish girl, even though she's only a little bit older than I am. Many, many others. Oh, many others, and all the rest of it. But when you go to the live streams, if you see the past ones and some of the things I said, they were just so fun. Sometimes there was such a reaction to it, I would laugh so much. We had our moments of fun and all the rest of it, and lots of laughing matters and social funny moments and so forth. But I must tell you that wonderful ladies like Heather, Sharon, Elizabeth, Stacey and Louise, to find those friends, those true friends, can be harder to find these days. But I'm just so fortunate. Thanks to Dave and Sally Abel, I got to make friends with these lovely people, including Eileen, who I hope to meet up with one day. And so many wonderful friends I made friends with via Dave and Sally Abel, really wonderful, including Myra, who's a Californian resident, as you could, just to say, and to give full clarification on it. And Kat, oh, courteous lady Kat, I forgot to mention her, I began to have a few conversations with. And she's a cruise enthusiast like Dave and Sally. Kat from Carolina is where she's located. I think it's South Carolina. I think she's located in either North Carolina or South Carolina. I cannot fully quite remember, but either one of those American states I know for a fact where she's located in. And she's a very nice lady, extremely courteous and well-meaning. And after Sally gave the recommendation for me to go for a run, and I was like, I cannot run very far anymore, which I cannot do. The legs don't work anymore for it. They work enough for a walk, a pleasant walk, my legs, but they don't work enough to the point of a good run. It doesn't work anymore for that, I'm afraid. And then the courteous lady Kat gave me the recommendation, says, look, Foxy, you start off slowly for running and then you just build it up gradually. You can do it. I began running when I was 50 years old. I think she's well over the age of, I think she's either in her 60s or 70s. I would say 60s, 70s, something like that, Kat is. Possibly 70s, I would think. And and she took up running at the age of 50, and me as a 20-year-old compared to a lady who takes up running at the age of 50 puts me at great shame to her. Goodness. Quite surprising, really. And lovely Janet from Greater London. I like Janet Rogers, that is. And she said, "You need some canine love, Foxy, to keep you young at heart." Well, and before you believe this or not, some of them even came over to my contents. Some people via Dave and Sally's contents, including lovely Sarah, that's Sarah Keith, retired nurse from New Jersey in America, that is. Absolutely, really very kind, extremely kind and polite, and oh my goodness, she's enormously tactful and friendly. Really, she has a tactful, loving nature, as she is because of her prior nursing career. She has a tactful, loving nature, and not only that, she's a extremely respectable and much loved grandmother and mother. Sarah is. I was surprised when she said this to me. I honestly thought she was a younger lady because she said she loved cold water, and fewer older people like colder water because a lot of older people don't like the colder water or even the cold weather, let alone that. For a fact, I would say that. But Sarah, cold water, for Sarah herself, it doesn't seem to bother her. Even though Dave Abel himself warned her about things shrivelling up in the cold water. Sarah likes cold water, yeah, but things shrivel up in the cold water. Yes. And lovely Genevieve I began hearing from. Very kind lady. Quite funny as well, I would say. And she taught me this phrase, which I probably will not forget, which is to just keep on keeping on despite dreadful circumstances at any point in life. And it's fantastic advice. It helps oneself to get through awful moments of any period of their lifetime. Just keep on keeping on. Really a good phrase of sentence, really. Good advice, not to mention. So I'm quite thankful that, I am quite thankful the lovely Genevieve taught me this. I'd like to take on the teaching from Genevieve. Yes. So lots of the first part of 2021 was all about funny moments and horsing around with Dave and Sally Abel and all of my friends who watch Dave and Sally's contents. Quite a few people from Dave and Sally's contents do follow my contents, just to say. Quite a reasonable number, actually. Believe this or not, they do follow my contents. As an absolute fact, they do. And it's not a fib. But I'm happy for it. I always get nice comments from time to time from the lovely Heather, the very nice and kindly well-meaning lady Sharon, alongside her husband Tim, much loved husband Tim, and sometimes from Louise. Yes, it's mainly from Heather, Sharon, Louise and Sarah I generally hear from time to time. Those from Dave and Sally Abel's contents to my contents whenever hearing from them, at times, that is. Yes, and then I took my first trip for 2021. It was really, the first part was about horsing around with Dave and Sally Abel and my friends from it. That was really what the first part of 2021 was all about, despite the really rotten start. Well, the really rotten and rough start, nothing but. after going through that, but still at the same time at times viewing Dave and Sally Abel, was my first trip of 2021 to Rottingdean on a beautiful sunny day. It just made it picturesque. No question about that. Wonderful. And then about a couple short weeks later, I took my first train trip of 2021, and really began to do just so much more as opposed, to viewing Dave and Sally Abel at times and other channels, including Harry Volker and all the rest of it. And but also doing the things I really enjoyed, doing it more so than I did in 2020, is how I could really define it. And for the first time, I did many things in 2021. Over time, as the year went on, I got the chance to go into, say, certain new shops where I'd never been to for the first time, or for the first time in a very, very long time, that is. Sorry. And, yes, going into certain shops, certain restaurants, pubs, cafes and things, from time to time, but not regularly, for the first time in 2021, or for the first time in a long time, you could so say. There was a first time for me going to some certain places in 2021, which was a positive moment and was lots of fun. Ow. Sorry. Kids, don't try this at home. Sorry, it was a bit itchy. I know Americans, sorry to be racist, but a lot of Americans would say, kids, do not try this at home. Bad robot. I know what their intentions can be like. No offence. But yes, getting to the point of 2021, that is, in terms of the flashbackable memories, as I do in a reasonable part of the new year, of every new year. I should not forget that. I went to some places I'd never been to for the first time over the course of 2021 as the year progressed and as more people got vaccinated, or as not David Abel, but David Scott likes to say, COVID inoculated. I began to visit many new places. And it was before, I was surprised even doing it, even before I was vaccinated myself. I visited many wonderful new places like Ditchling Beacon. I really liked Ditchling Beacon. Lovely place to take a nature reserve walk to, as I know Sharon from America is interested in my nature walks. There are many nature walks, Sharon, in England, if you're watching, and Ditchling Beacon, I would recommend it to both you and Tim. And we could probably all three. Oh, no. But I'm sure there are nature walks in New York, Sharon, even though despite the fact it's a very, very big city where you're located in. Yes, but Sharon, that Sharon Reuter, just to say everybody, she took a rather big reverie into my interest of taking nature walks, but the Ditchling Beacon one really did bring me a striving grip of interest, really. It really did. And it took me about an hour to fully get through it because I enjoyed it too much, but it was very cold on the day I went, really just so cold when I went. So you would have definitely needed a coat if you were to go. Coat, hat, scarf, gloves. You would have definitely needed it when I went. Even though it was early May and it was freezing. It was really the coldest. 2021 of May was the coldest May I had ever felt in England since 2017. May of 2017 was just bitterly freezing. Early part of it, but it got considerably warmer later in the month. And the same could be said for May of 2021, really very like May of 2017, which was really cold throughout most of the part, but only very slowly getting warmer to suddenly getting considerably warmer at the very latter part of it. So, which could explain why I had to undo my shirt, the top shirt collar, at the very latter part of May and start wearing a lighter jumper. Well, even though many would say I should be wearing a t-shirt or shorts. Well, sadly, as I did say before on a Dave and Sally Abel live stream, when you get older, oneself feels the cold more, and I certainly am one of those individuals who feels the cold more. Dear, oh dear. And even in the summer I can feel the cold more. I can be seen in short sleeves, but only if it's like 30-degree heat, really. That's 30 degrees Celsius and not Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit would be like probably 90 odd degrees Fahrenheit, but I don't usually measure weather temperature in Fahrenheit. I do it in degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. But in America they do it in Fahrenheit, and in Canada as well. Quite very, very differently to British people. In the United Kingdom they measure it differently. And also in May of 2021 I went to visit the Seaford branch line for the first time, the very, very first time in about 3 years. Because until the 1st of May 2021, the last time I visited the Seaford branch line until that very day was in March of 2018. So very, very long time ago. Yes, and it's also quite a highlighting. It's also really quite a highlighting moment, really, of 2021. Not only is it a happy flashbackable memory, but it's a highlighting moment. And also another one of my highlighting moments, it was again in May of 2021. I had one of the most highlighting moments since March of 2020. That was giving my dear grandmother Anne a paid visit for the first time since my late grandfather Edmund's funeral. And I saw her for the first time in a long time. She was absolutely elated to see me. I was absolutely elated to see her. We reunited with a great big hug and a nice little luncheon at her house. It was myself, my grandmother and my Uncle Blaze, who had just been vaccinated against COVID at that point, because he had his first dose of Pfizer on the 14th of May. He got it just very shortly after my parents had their first doses. My parents had the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccination, the same one my friend David Scott had, as well as Dave and Sally Abel had Oxford AstraZeneca, before being boosted, that is. My parents had already had their first doses of Oxford AstraZeneca. Uncle Blaze had his first dose of Pfizer at that point, and all that, so, sorry everyone. He'd had his first dose of Pfizer, and, at that point, and he was very happy to see me, and as well, for the first time in a long time, and so was my grandmother, and I was too. Yes, and so that was a highlighting moment, and then I went back home, and I happily cherished the day, having seen my grandmother for the first time in over a year. Really, it was a cherished moment for me, and she was really doing a lot better at that point, having made her reinvigoration point following the dreadful loss of Edmund. And then sometime later I took a nice trip to Bournemouth for the first time in almost a year, and then in Bournemouth I bought myself a very nice polo shirt in a nice little shop in Bournemouth. And also it's a seaside town, Bournemouth, as Bournemouth, Dorset. And then also not too long after that, it was another Rottingdean trip, and then a trip to Midhurst. I really like Midhurst, very much like Midhurst, I have to say. And also in May of 2022, I, for the first time in almost a year, believe this or not, nearly a year, went to the pub just across the road from Lancing Railway Station. From quite a friendly bus driver who looked like Dustin Hoffman, who drove me. And then I saw him again in June. And then I had to share with him the exciting news. He recognised me and looked at me with a smile. He's a bit shorter than I am, but not very short, just slightly shorter. And I shared the exciting news with him that I was going to be vaccinated. He was like, I've been vaxxed too, but I felt nothing after I had my... He was incredible. When he had his 2 vaccinations, he had Oxford, that was, where he was much older than me. And he did not have a sore arm, and did not have side effects, let alone. And he can be seen sometimes driving the stagecoach bus route 9, which does Homebush to Homebush Centre near Shoreham in West Sussex in England to Angring in West Sussex. No, Arundel in West Sussex, which is just a bit away from Littlehampton. He's a good guy. I've seen him quite a few times, and some bus journeys I managed to do again for the first time, which I just love doing. In the event of a £9 discovery ticket, which you can buy on the Brighton Hove and use it on other buses in Sussex. Brilliant. And getting to the next highlighting moment, on the 14th of June 2021, I personally, along with my brother Rexy, got vaccinated against COVID, receiving our first doses of the Pfizer vaccination. It was just 8 days before my birthday, I was vaccinated with my first dose of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID vaccination. And then the next week I celebrated the very next week, I celebrated my very, very special 20th birthday, which was a wonderful moment. My special 20th, and I spent my 20th birthday weekend with my grandmother Anne, just to say, which was lots of fun and certainly most enjoyable. And also took a train trip to Shoreham in Kent, a very pretty little village, and took a nice big walk there, and then came back to my grandmother's. And then the next day we had a Sunday roast, and my other grandmother, who is also friends with my grandmother Anne, that's grandmother Margaret, who is friends with grandmother Anne, she came over for a Sunday lunch. And so on my 20th birthday weekend, I saw both my grandmothers on my birthday weekend, including my Uncle Blaze. And I also saw my grandmother Margaret on the 1st of June 2021 for the first time for the first time since 2019, believe this or not. And then I stayed over. Then the next week I gave my grandmother Anne again. Before I was vaccinated, I saw my grandmother Anne and spent the night with her. And I also got to see my new cousins, which my auntie successfully gave birth to back in January of 2021. She gave birth to twins Florence and Finley. Wonderful new cousins. Yes, and all that. And also, I really forgot to share this. This was just after I saw my grandmother Margaret. one of the most wonderful things happened to us, and certainly myself, and as well as my mother, was when we got our beautiful gingerish white quarter Maine Coon cat Daphne. We got her on the 3rd of June 2021, as she was born only on the 31st of March 2021 as a tiny kitten. Just, seeing pictures of her because my friend is the owner of Daphne's mother, and Daphne's parents, her mother and her father. And seeing Daphne, I was about to cry. I was almost tearful when I saw her for the first time, in person that was, when we just got her. I was like, oh, she is just perfect. She is just beautiful. I almost cried when I saw her. I could hardly believe we'd had Daphne in the house at that point. I could really hardly believe it. And she was really a very, very shy little girl at first. And then she just somewhat began to come up to us and get used to us. And it was just only a few days since we just got her, and she actually slept on the bed with me. And it was only just about a couple of days since we got her, and she slept on the bed with me, when she was incredibly shy a couple of days prior. And in one evening, she actually watched Spaceballs with me, and she tried to tap the screen on one of the villains of Spaceballs when watching the movie with me. Lot of fun. And all the rest of it. Yes, and getting later on, I also managed to go to Devil's Dyke for the first time in a very long time, taking a nice long walk there, or sometimes getting the bus there, just to say as well as Telscombe Cliffs, sometimes going there, but at the same time having to care for Daphne when needed, and all the catch-alls and all that. Definitely sometime after my 20th birthday I went to Devil's Dyke, and with over time with the videos I did, I heard for the first time from wonderful David. That's David Scott I'm referring to. And then David somewhat saw my videos of the buses, which he seemed to like, he very much liked. And then I actually mentioned to him that I liked bus rallies and things, and that I was due to attend the Worthing Bus Rally of 2021. And he was like, I like bus rally, and he, much to my surprise, as well as loving cats, he loved bus rallies too. And as well as miniature railways and other vintage events. He, like me, loves all things vintage and heritage. And all that. And also, later on in July of 2021, one of the most wonderful and exciting moments of my life, I made my biggest comeback to the Hove Park Miniature Railway. For the first time, it was the 24th of July 2021 when I went there, for the first time since the 19th of October 2019. And it was just an exciting comeback, not only for the miniature railway and the volunteers who volunteer there, but for me as well. It was before I had my second COVID vaccination when I went, about just over 2 weeks before. And I also got the most enchanted pleasure in meeting Jack for the first time when I made my biggest comeback to the Hove Park Miniature Railway. And then the next day after that I made my biggest comeback to the Worthing Bus Rally. And there I met some of my friends for the first time since 2019 and all that. And then that was where I met David. Looking at David, and then I saw, and then he said hello, a man said hello, I turned around, and there was a man looking almost exactly like Edmund, well, not quite exactly, but very, very like Edmund, but the only difference was his stockier figure, but obviously his shorter height appearance, which was very much Edmund, but completely bald head, completely bald at the top with hair around his side, balder than Edmund, but with glasses almost like him and a face very like Edmund. I was like, David, is that you? And he was like, yes, it's me. And then we shook hands and he was like, well, all this COVID stuff. Yes. And I think he wondered, he somewhat was conclusive he'd seen me, but it was literally at the ending point of the bus rally when we saw each other, when we had a marvellous conversation together and all that. And he had questioned me about Daphne, and I said she was fine and all that. And I did tell her that she was a quarter Maine Coon, and I did show her a picture of her before we got her, of her parents, and David was like, I was like, is her dad a Maine Coon? And I was like, he's a half Maine Coon, David. And he was like, yeah, and he said, oh, he's very big like one. He said, I've always been very fond of Maine Coons and part Maine Coons. And then there, at Worthing Bus Rally, I gave him the recommendation into uploading YouTube videos, and he has now been YouTubing on and off since that moment. And then in there at Worthing Bus Rally, he mentioned Tinker's Park to me, and there, Tinker's Park, I ended up going within 2 weeks later, but David didn't go because it was because of the previous rainy weather, so he didn't go because of that, and certain weather conditions can put David off to going to certain events, just to say. But we met up within about just over a week later, just to say, David and myself, at the Eastbourne Miniature Steam Railway, which I went there again for the first time since August of 2019, on the 17th of August 2021. Both David and myself went there together. And that's when David did reveal something to me, which now does make me worry about him at times. And but meeting David has been, for 2021, meeting David, that's David Scott, has been one of the most highlighting moments of 2021. For me, it really has. Being with David, I feel as though Edmund is alive to me whenever I'm with David. And then a few days later we met up at the Hove Park Miniature Railway, and there he got to meet Jack for the first time, and instantly they were getting on well together. And all the volunteers very much liked David, they really did. All the Hove Park volunteers, they all came to really like David very much. Seeing as he's my friend, they all came to very much like him really very much. I mean, particularly Adam and Alfie, they very much liked David. Jack particularly liked David as well. And then again I went to the Hove Park Miniature Railway. David didn't attend the very special event day, but that's alright, as he just had a big eventful weekend at the Hellingly event. And then he came to the next one, but then the next day he went to Lawton, which I sadly could not attend. And also in 2021 I went for the first time to the Whitehall Transport Museum, which is about just over a mile away from Birmingham, where Eileen is located. And went to Birmingham for the first time whilst on my way to the Transport Museum. Really was an enchanting trip, but very, very tiresome because I got back home extremely late that day, at just after midnight, and didn't go to sleep till about... And when I came in the house, Daphne was just there, standing there waiting, and so was Nixie. Yes, and also another highlighting moment of 2021 was when we got Nixie, because it was getting to the point where Daphne was constantly wanting company all the time. My mother said to Daphne, "You want company all the time, don't you?" And then they got Nixie. It was a turbulent relationship at first for Daphne and Nixie, but it greatly improved within days, and now they are just buddies together. They're just of great company to each other, and Daphne, since we've got Nixie, Daphne has stopped constantly meowing for company since then. So yes, and all that. And also going back to the Brighton Toy Museum for the first time since February 2020 in July 2021, and then again in September of 2021, and again September 2021 for the first time. I went there to the Brighton Toy Museum in 2021 more times than I did in 2020. And I just love the Brighton Toy Museum. I really do. And I also went to Stanmer Park in 2021 for the first time since April 2019. And there I met one of my followers who I'd somehow never heard from in the comments, but he somewhat saw my contents and he instantly recognised me, seeing what I looked like. That was Cameron, just to say, and we had a nice conversation together. And he was actually very thankful of me encountering him, and before I left he shouted a big thank you to me just as I boarded the bus to head back home. No, to head to a restaurant because I was eating out that very evening. It was the Saturday evening in September, that was. And then it was to Hove Park Miniature Railway again. And then off to Seaford, where we had some missed meets up with David. Really screwed up with it. And sorry still, David, if you're watching, that I screwed up with those planned meetups. Really sorry. But then we met up the following week at the Hove Park Miniature Railway, because David attended the very last two Hove Park Miniature Railway Open Public Running Days of 2021, that was. And that was a good moment we had there together. And we also attended the 30th opening anniversary of the Brighton Toy and Model Museum together, and David, when he went there, it brought back some wonderful memories to him. He said it just made him think when he was a little boy, all the toys he saw on display just made him think of the toys he used to play with when he was a little boy, because David, well, he is quite a bit older than I am. He is quite old, David is, and so that's why he was able to have the flashback. He had the flashbackable moments far more clearly than I did. And then the very next day, we attended the Sprat and Wrinkle Hastings HCVS event on the 17th of October 2021 on what would have been Edmund's very special 75th birthday, on his birthday anniversary, which the first birthday anniversary since he died in 2020 was the saddest one. But the 2021 one, the following year, it was reasonably sad, but was easier to handle because of the event I had and also David. And then David and I met the following week again at the last 2021 Open Public Running Day of the Hove Park Miniature Railway before the 2022 proceedings. And then we attended the last Saturday of the Eastbourne Miniature Steam Railway on the 30th of October 2021, both of us attending together, and then we both went out for a meal together after that. And then the following week we attended the London to Brighton Veteran Car Run, and then once the event was over we both went to the Café Le Rouge, where David and his long-time, wonderful, well-liked, long-time friend Kim had been to many a times before. And we had a pleasant meal out there. It was wonderful. It was enchanting. I really had some wonderful moments with David in 2021. It was really just doing the things I pretty much did with Edmund almost, really very much so, and really brought back memories of when I was with Edmund being with David. It really, really did. I mean, after losing my wonderful late grandfather Edmund, as the sorrowful bereavement affected me deeply, as well as my grandmother, not to mention, being with David is like, it's really just like bringing back those memories, being with my late grandfather Edmund. It really, really is. I was actually due to take David out for his birthday, which was in December, but for a birthday meal in one of the seafood restaurants, but he had already had plans, but it's alright, never mind. And also, one of the most highlighting moments, but I was really quite honoured when I heard this, it was most pleasantly touching when I heard this. David himself got Kim, his longtime friend, into uploading YouTube videos after I gave him the recommendation. Like, really, it's no joke, this happened. And Kim was thankful. Kim does know of me, just to say, because David did tell her about Daphne, just to say, which is alright. And she said to David that she very much liked Daphne, and then David passed on her kind words to me. And I'm thankful to David and thankful to Kim for their kind compliments of courteous sincerity, certainly towards Daphne and Nixie, not to mention. Nixie, who is my beautiful Russian blue cat, and Daphne, my Maine Coon cat. Well, part Maine Coon cat Daphne is, as David once had a part Maine Coon cat himself, and he's loved Maine Coons. Part Maine Coons, full Maine Coons, he's loved them. But I have really had, and also in November of 2021, for the first time, after 5 years of planning, I went and took a paid visit to the Mangaps Railway Museum, located in Burnham-on-Crouch in Essex. And oh my goodness, I had a wonderful experience there. One of the most wonderful experiences. That's the most enchanting and exciting and elating railway museums I'd ever been to. I am going to go back there again later in 2022. Really, really, I'm just going back there again. No doubt about it, I'm going to go back whenever I can. And the same could certainly be said for the Whitehall Transport Museum, no doubt. Certainly no doubt. And so 2021 was really much, much better than 2020, and I had a nice Christmas of 2021, having a nice guest around, whereas 2020 Christmas was nothing but lonely. And it was also Daphne and Nixie's first Christmas, 2021, and they enjoyed it as well. Enjoying their first Christmas and enjoying it with Daphne and Nixie, their first Christmases, was just a wonderful experience. Really it was. I mean, one of the most flashbackable and most highlighting and happy moments of 2021 was my big comeback to bus rallies, miniature railways, and going to places I'd never been to before, but planned to do it for a long time or in recent days, and then succeeding in going. Really, I'm most thankful that I was able to do it in 2021, really I was. Oh, and I forgot to mention, 9th of August 2021 I got my second dose of the Pfizer vaccination along with my brother. We both had our second doses done. And then on the 18th of December I had my additional booster vaccination, which was Pfizer, just to say. And Rexy, my brother, he had his booster a few days after I had mine. And my parents are boosted as well as David. is David Scott and also Dave and Sally Abel, not to mention. And I really had, but 2021, one of the most highlighting and most, really much better year than 2020. Really it was. I did so many things and succeeded to do many things I'd planned to do for a long time, to the things I'd not done before, but did it in 2021, making a big 2021 was also in the summer period, the year where I made a great big comeback to miniature railways, bus rallies, and going to vintage events I'd not been to before, even events I'd not been to before, and certain museums. I also made a comeback to the Booth Museum just before Christmas of 2021, not to mention, for the first time in about 8 years when I visited it. No, in October 2021 I went there for the first time in 8 years, not December, sorry, I got it wrong. And honestly, those were just the most exciting moments of 2021. I just could not have asked for a better year than 2020. I could not have had a much better year. I really did some of the most wonderful things in my leisure time in 2021. I really did. And also sometimes in my leisure time, I forgot to mention this, a very nice enchanting little shop, very nice, charmingly enchanting little shop I went to and sometimes bought some nice things from. It's reasonably antiques-like, because they sell old-fashioned things like old-fashioned clothes and stuff, or exclusive clothes, as David would describe it, which was a Covert, I think it is. Covert is the shop. It's located in Hove, Covert, C-O-V-E-T, Covert. I've been there more than once, sometimes for a look around or sometimes to buy something from there. And I remembered going there and I was going to pay cash or something, but there was not enough change to give out to me, so I had to resort over to the Visa debit card payment, put it in the machine, and just had to very carefully put the pin in so that no one else would see. Well, I was the only one. I'm guessing they had other people going in before I came in that day. It was the day after I'd had my first vaccination, and this lady was like, well, he says, sorry, I don't think I have enough change on me. She's quite old, the lady. Who, really, I think she's at retirement age, this lady working in the shop, because she looked over 60. I would think she's over 65, this lady. Because looking at her, she did look quite old, but still working, surprisingly. And he's like, yeah, well, I quite like the cash payments. I was like, and I'm still hopeful to do it. I was like, oh no, don't worry. I was like, not to worry. We've still got quite a long time yet before we can keep using the cash payment methods. And she was like, oh, well, hopefully. She was not entirely sure. I ended up looking, and I looked at her. I was close to staring at the lady. Goodness, she was pretty. She was pretty. She stood about 5'6", 5'7" in height, and quite skinny, actually, believe this or not. I'm surprised how slim she was, because many ladies, even in their 50s, let alone 40s, some are skinny like that, but it's reasonably rare. Usually if they're young, much younger, yes. But this one in particular was really, I'm surprised how slim she was. Skinny is how I describe it. Really quite skinny. Much slimmer than my structure. Just to say. Like really much slimmer than my body structure. And I think she dyes her hair, because it was blonde, but I could see quite a bit of grey showing, so it's quite likely she dyes her hair. And it would not surprise me if she said she was over 65 or past retirement age. It would not surprise me in the slightest if she were to reveal it. I mean, I never asked how old she was. I've never asked how old she was. But goodness, she was pretty, despite her older features. But not only did she look quite old, she did sound quite old as well. No, she really did sound quite old. She was blonde, but personally I think she dyes her hair blonde. It was sort of a mixture of green and blue eyes. I said, it's nice seeing you, looking lovely. I literally said that to her, and she quickly turned over to me and just like, oh, thank you, that's very nice of you. And I remembered seeing her not too long ago after that. And she said, I hope you're not too warm with your sleeveless jacket. She had just a completely sleeveless dress on when I next saw her, exposing completely her arms. I said, it was baking hot yesterday. I said, but it seems to have cooled off today. She said, it still seems very hot to me. It's very, very hot to me. But it was actually, to believe it or not, it was considerably cooler, but still a bit too hot to wear a jumper, but probably just a long sleeve shirt and a sleeveless, either a long sleeve light coat unzipped or a sleeveless coat unzipped with only part of the arms I exposed, not all of them. I said, no, I do feel the cold, believe this or not. I bought a belt from the shop that day, which does fit on some of my trousers, just to say. Very nice, old-fashioned like belt I bought. He said, well, it was hot for me, I said, and I took my hat off to give my head a little tap, and I said, well, what I am fortunate about is having all of my hair, despite feeling the cold more. And then the lady looked directly towards me, and she said, and she ended up looking rather incredulous at me after what I said. And she said, what? She said, you're just a boy, aren't you? But you're just a boy, aren't you? And it's no wonder why you still have all of your hair, let alone all your colour. And I said, no, I am more than grown up, actually, being over 20. But she thought I was under 18. She thought I was just a boy. A 20-year-old being seen as just a boy. A 20-year-olds are grown adults, not boys and girls. You know. That's the truth of it. Then I saw her again not too long ago, and there was another person in a shop who came to buy something, and I came to look to see what was around, whether there was anything to buy or not. And she just inadvertently brought up the COVID subject with me, and I was like, and then after she brought it up randomly, because we never really spoke of it, but David and I do speak of it at times, as David is very, because David's boosted, and he was like, I'd have my booster because I'm more bothered about COVID than I am with the flu, and the lady, we didn't say much after that, and then I ended up asking her this question. But she's a lovely, lovely lady, really lovely lady, very pretty and very kind and well-meaning. And then I asked her this question, and I said, did you by any chance get yourself vaccinated against COVID? And she said no, and said no. And she was like, well, she said no. I was like, oh. I said, but are you medically allergic to vaccinations? And then she just immediately and swiftly replied, no. And then I looked at her in a state of shock, and I was like, oh. I was just like, oh no. I was like, oh no. I was like, oh no. And then she just said, it's not very thorough, the vaccination, not very thorough at all. No, so I was like, oh no. I was like, an older lady like her, who's could probably even be old, probably nearly as old as my grandmother Anne, potentially nearly as old as my grandmother Anne, and she's not been vaccinated against COVID. I was shocked as well as worried for her, that if she were to go down with it, I would worry about her getting seriously ill if she were to go down with the COVID virus as an unvaccinated individual. Silly not to be vaccinated. And I think she was vaccinated, but she just wasn't so sure about the vaccination at first. I think she'd only had one, but was waiting her second one, and I'd already had my 2 at the point. I think she'd had her first one by the time I'd already had my second. And she said, I've had my first, but I wasn't really sure about the vaccination. That's what she said. And she was like, no, she said, I've not had them. And she said, it's not very thorough. You just go in, get your vaccine, and you go. It's not thorough at all. And she said, also, secondly, I do not want certain things put into me. And she said, but did you get vaccinated by any chance? She asked this to me, directly to me. And I said, I've been double vaxxed, yes. And she said, but what? And she said, but, I said, I've been double vaxxed. No, she didn't ask, and I said, I've been double vaxxed as well. After the lady said she'd only been vaccinated with 1 dose, in the shop that was, and I said, I've been vaccinated with both doses now. And then the lady, that's the older lady working at the shop, she said to me, but you're too young to be vaccinated. You're much too young and you're too low risk. She clearly thought I was too young. I was like, no, I'm well over the age of 18, so I'm perfectly eligible for it. I was perfectly eligible to have the vaccination. And she said, did you have any side effects? And I said, I did have a few side effects after my first dose, responding to her question. And I said to her, well, because I had the Pfizer vaccination, I had quite a few side effects after the first, but none other than a sore arm after the second one. This was before we gave out booster vaccinations. And she was like, and she was very, very shocked that I was vaccinated. I mean, she's a very nice lady, very kind and very nice lady, but is very, very anti-vax. That's how I describe her. Extremely anti-vax, I would say. I would really say extremely anti-vax. Never mind. No, but I think that's a lot I really had to cover for 2021, really. So many flashbackable memories and so many wonderful, wonderful highlighting moments of 2021. Really, some highlighting moments of 2021. And I enjoyed every moment of all the fun things I got up to in 2021. I know it's so much I've had to share, and I'm sorry if this video is too long, but really one of the most highlighting moments ever from 2021 is not only horsing around with Dave and Sally Abel, and as well as having lots of social interactions with the lovely Heather from Canada, lovely Sharon from New York in America, lovely Sarah from New Jersey in America, courteous Lady Cat from Carolina in America, Louise and Tez Hayward from Worcestershire in England, and the good Lady Eileen from Birmingham in the Midlands in England, and many others, especially all my friends who I've actually also made, including the lovely Buket from Turkey, all of my friends from Harry Volker's contents, as well as in addition to Dave and Sally Abel's contents, all the friends I made and horsed around with and all that at times. They have been highlighting moments, really highlighting moments. And also encountering David, that's David Scott, not David Abel I'm referring to, but I'm referring to David Scott, has really been just one of the most highlighting moments of 2021. Being with David, as said before, is like being with my Edmund again. I feel as though Edmund is alive to me, being with David again. Really, it really does feel like it. I can certainly say that without a large asking price. And I do sometimes worry about David, although David is a generally happy man and has I wouldn't say he has a zest for life, but he has an observant interest in life. He has suffered as much mentally, I'm afraid, and I do worry about him. I don't know whether or not I should reveal this or not. Is that he did very sadly lose his one and only brother a very, very long time ago. His brother died in a motorbike accident when he was only 18, which was really just a tragedy, absolute tragedy. David was incredibly upset when losing his brother, but he said what was worse was seeing his parents nothing but heartbroken, and he was so upset. And he gave up riding motorbikes within 2 years after his brother died. I mean, it was really, really sad because David's brother had a life ahead of him which he never got to achieve because he died in a motorbike accident at 18. Very, very sad. Yes, both David and myself, we both share similar interests, and there's a different, I mean, he looks quite like Edmund, which explains the difference in our appearances, and also another difference in our appearance is our height differences, because there's me standing at only 5'8", well I'm only standing at 5'8" in height, which is not terribly tall for a man, but it's tall to David, that is, and there David is only 5'4½", which is really quite short for a man, and certainly not tall for a man in height, but never mind. Well, he did say his parents were quite short, even though he said his father was tall. I said, but if he was tall, how tall was your late father, David? He said, oh, he was tall, he was about 5'4", and I was like, that's short! I was like, David, I'm 5'8", that's shorter than I am. And he said his brother was only about 5'6", which is again shorter than me, being 5'8" in height. So yes, there is a difference in our height when together, but we have very similar interests together, and sometimes, because I'm taller than David, if we were at a miniature row, he said, do you mind if I sit in front of you, please? And I said, oh yes, yes, yes. He said, because you're taller, I can hardly see above your head. Never mind, but it's alright. I mean, Edmund was about similar height to David, very much so. So I think, it's very, very like that, really. So that's really all the flashbackable moments and most highlighting and wonderful memories of 2021 I've had to share with all of you. Thanks all for watching, everybody, and I shall definitely see you in the very next video. Bye bye, everybody. Ta-ta, another time. I'm so sorry if it's far too long, this video, but all the same, thanks for watching. From Foxy.